Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a meeting of the Wareham Board of Sewer Commissioners, February 24th, 6:30. I could call the meeting to order. And for roll call,
Sandy Slavin.
Malcolm White, present.
Peter Dunlop.
and Jim Gibberti. We have a quorum of 4. And we have minutes from the meeting of January 13th.
Thank you. I have reviewed the minutes of January 13th, 2022, and I have one question. Can someone tell me what a PICHU basin is?
What?
It's on page 3, Article 7D. The PICHU basin is in.
PICHU?
PICHU basin is in, but getting metal and other materials has been difficult. Anybody else see that in the minutes? I have no idea what basin she's talking about.
It's probably the covered EQ basin.
EQ?
Yes, because we have a covered EQ basin.
Okay, so it will have to be corrected to be a word that we understand with that motion, I'd make a motion, we accept the minutes of January 13th as amended.
Second.
That's, from the sounds of the spelling of the word that's there, it seems like Guy is correct, it should be EQ basin. I'm sure that's the way she just misheard
Probably
it
didn't realize
when she did it, okay.
EQ.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
400.
Mine.
Okay. And now the main item for tonight really is Springtown meeting warrants. And we have 2 articles.
Matt, do you need a copy?
Yep, please.
Do you have an extra one? Okay.
I did read the draft.
I have one question on the article, on both of them, same thing.
Okay,
Thanks, Matt. To see if the town will vote to transfer 300 million
no, 3 minutes.
from available funds and authorize. Should that be and or?
I don't know where else money would come from. That's what we're here to talk about. Where are our funds available? Can we only borrow, or do we have any place else to get the money from? I mean, Mr. Foster is asking the question, so maybe Jimmy can,
I don't have an answer from him.
well, no, I sent you his questions, and I thought
Yep.
you said you had responses for them.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question to me, but let me back
What
up.
was
Let me
Mr.
back up.
Foster asked us.
I know, let me back up.
While you're looking at that, Guy, at the 13th meeting, you said it would cost 3.8 millions for the force main, and we were only asking for 3. Is that because a number's changed since the
Yes, we got-
January meeting? Okay, that's,
Got a number.
okay, thank you. I had just seen a different number than what we were working on.
And as far as the articles, my concern is, we do not, as I understand at this point, have certified funds in our retained earnings. And if we do not have that at town meeting, then there's no way we can transfer any money. So, at the very least,
So
it
the
should
word
say-
transfer is misleading?
I think so, I really do, because the only place we can transfer from, to my understanding, is the retained earnings.
So I should say vote to acquire? Obtain?
Obtain, require, or, I would say, to Peter's point, to transfer and/or authorize borrowing. In other words, it's an option. If there is money to transfer, let's say that for some reason they do get it certified, and it is available, we can discuss it, but I think it should be the option at town meeting.
Okay, so instead of the word transfer, to vote to obtain from available funds and/or authorize?
Borrowing. That's what I would, because, transfer, I don't know if we have the funds available to transfer. Because at last I knew retained earnings weren't certified.
And until they're certified, we can't do anything with them.
Can't do anything with them, and that gets me
Even though,
nervous.
whether it's there or not, we still can't do anything.
Yes.
So it's transfer 3 million from available funds or authorize borrowing.
I would suggest, I would,
So I leave the word transfer in there,
in the event there is money,
From-
or,
available funds and/or. Does that take care of it, Peter?
I would say that, yeah,
It was asked how many years, and I think the response to Mr. Foster was a 10-year borrow.
according to John, would like to know if we're gonna borrow the money, transfer from available funds, or will we be borrowing from the Mass Clean Water Trust?
we will not be borrowing from the Clean Water Trust because we haven't applied for that. That's a year process. So we would be probably borrowing on open market, as we did for the basins. So
Well,
John
I
would have,
thought the basin said that we came from our available,
we borrowed, for the basins, we borrowed $1.6 million, I believe. We're making payments now on that loan.
Well, could we borrow from them again?
Sure. To borrow from SRF funding, we have to apply, get on the state list, get approved. Again, the project we're doing now at the plant is SRF funding. We had to get on that list 2 years ago to be able to borrow it now to do the project. So if we said we wanted to borrow it from the Clean Water Trust, or SRF, we couldn't even do that because we're not even on the list with approval from the state to move any projects forward.
Now,
So
what's
we
the
can't.
advantage to borrowing from them?
It's a 2% interest. That's,
So what, if we borrow this money, what will we be paying in interest?
whatever the market is, and I don't have that
Is-
answer.
is-
We paid a pretty good interest on the last one because borrowing was reasonable. I'm not so sure.
Well, could we put an application into Clean Water? Even, go ahead with this now, borrow it from bond wherever we have to, but apply to Clean Water, and if we get it,
No,
you,
you got to apply before. The project has to be approved to borrow. We can't start the project and say, oh, by the way, we'd like to apply for funding for a project we already started. Because I
in
tried that
other
in
words,
other
we
projects.
couldn't borrow from them to pay off what we've already.
No, I tried that.
Okay. To pick up on what Peter was just saying, if we apply to Clean Water now, you say it's gonna be probably a year process to get on the list with them. We've still got Heinz Field coming down the street, which is another 3 million probably. Would we be able to borrow from, do that now with the anticipation of that coming?
Yeah, so what happens is the trust, the abatement trust, or SRF, puts out a, if you will, request for proposals.
Right.
All the communities in Massachusetts that may have projects that they want funded through this, we have to all submit in writing what we plan to do.
Gotcha.
They go through a process
Right.
of vetting, and they're weighed, and they're given specific points. And then they weigh that against all the projects in the state of Massachusetts, and they select certain ones. So even then, even though we apply, we'd have to wait until they weigh these projects, and, because they will put their money, because it's limited, in the best projects. But we can, and it may be wise to back other projects to make it more appealing,
I
if you
mean,
will. So, yeah.
all I'm suggesting is that, it makes sense to put the application, apply now, looking forward to what we're gonna be doing, and group whatever we can group together in,
We are.
Yep.
We're looking for other
Proposal.
projects, yes. We have a $17 million project we're looking at now, because we need a headworks building and clarifiers. If
Right.
headwork building's destroyed, clarifiers are in trouble. So we're looking at that project. That'll definitely be SRF funding, because last year it was $17 million. By the time we get out, there's no guarantee what that cost is going to be. So
Unfortunately.
we'll work that at that time. So we are putting together a project. We've already submitted it to the town, because we're looking for all kinds of funding, and we knew that there was some money coming from the opera. But yes, to answer your question, yes, we would put a project together. I think those funds, or they begin the process next October.
Okay.
And then we start the process of applying, and then you go, and then I think you have to, by Springtown meeting, commit to the project if they accept you, because January, they put out the list of all projects accepted. And once you're accepted, then you gotta go to town meeting and get the town to authorize the borrowing of that funds, and then it goes to the next phase. So once that comes out, we'll put an application in, and usually around August, they give
I
you.
gotta say, so right now, what you're telling me, if I heard you correctly, we're looking at about 2.5 years out.
Before we do, yes, with the process. It's about what we did with the project we're on now. So that wouldn't apply to the particular project, because the Wankinko, I forget which one this is specific, but the ones we're asking for specifically, Wankinko, we'd like to start, and the lining of the pipe, start that immediately.
Right.
Start that in July. We don't
Now,
want to wait.
would this come under SRF funding at all?
Yeah, it could, because it's
Right now?
improvement of your sewer system
Yeah, I was
or
gonna
your
say,
treatment
because we've already
facilities.
we're already on the list with that, and we're functioning, so that would kind of slide along.
Yeah, so, yes, and I'm glad that we moved forward with the project, because there was one before that they gave us $3 million, and we said no, which meant that other communities lost the opportunity to get that $3 million. So sometimes they frown upon that stuff, to say, okay, well, but they did, because the project we're doing now, the DEP, because of all the spillage to the ground and the filters, they figured, they actually got a high weight because it was critical, and so they allowed it to go through. But yes, we apply, and we'll go through the process, and if you continue to do projects, same thing with grants, you get, if you will, a favorable if there's a swaying, and you get, not only that, you get the DEP to fight on your side, because as you're doing these projects, all the advocates you have are important. So, in this particular one we're doing now at the plant, the DEP advocated for us in a huge way to get this project in. So we'd put a project together, and we'd get it out to the DEP for review, and have them become our advocate. So when it goes through the vetting process, they can advocate, and it's a weighing thing. So, yeah.
Okay,
I've been looking at old warrants. I move that the town vote to appropriate 1 million from capital reserve and further borrow 1.6 million. I appropriate 3 million from retained earnings. Another one says, what's this one say? Wait a second. Appropriate the sum of 9 million to pay for the cost. And to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer will approve, with approval of the selectmen, will authorize to borrow borrow or obtain through Mass Clean Water Trust. So the words have been all over the place for the last 4 years of articles. So how would you like me to word this one?
The appropriate sound, so I think the couple you read, the word appropriate was
Yep.
prominent in there.
So the last one was appropriate
appropriate.
and/or transfer or borrow, see, to rise,
I like appropriate.
okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer a sum of money from available funds and authorize borrowing. So I will use that section of words that came out of our last year's capital plan. Appropriate and/or transfer a sum of money from available funds and authorize borrowing. So take it from where we can, Mr. Foster's
And
decision.
whatever else we have to do, we
And
borrow.
borrowing subject to Mass General Law 44, Section 7 or 8. So I can take what we did in Article 6 for the FY '22 capital plan and insert those words.
Sounds good.
that sounds good. And do that on both of them, right?
Yep.
Guy, back to your clean water. You say it takes 2.5 years. Does it look bad if we put in 3 or 4 applications?
No, they wouldn't, no, it doesn't. We'll put one application with projects that all tie together,
Well, I mean-
directly or indirectly.
We've got this project at Wankinko, but let's face it, we know Hamilton Beach and all of Swifts with a lot of onset suffers the same problem. Should we put it in?
We should, talk about the amount of, how much you want to do, approximate cost, yes, and put that in also.
Well,
Absolutely.
and if we cite the, you know, the inflow that we're getting, EPA is obviously gonna pick up on it, that what goes in must come out. We could get them on our side.
It would have a higher weight, because when you talk about resiliency and addressing groundwater, addressing the rise in sea level, which all that does, yes, it has a
And-
higher weight.
and with the rising
You get a
sea
higher-
levels
yes,
and
you get
so
a
forth.
higher weight to the project. Because the EPA right now is big on the concept of making sure your pipes are tight, because as the sea level rises, the water table rises, and your pipes that may not be affected today will definitely be affected tomorrow. And the more pipes you have under the water, the more I&I, or infiltration, that you will get, which becomes detrimental to the entire system. So that's a reality, so those get high weights. And the other thing we really need to do is talk about an article, or we had talked about maybe, I think it's regulations, when Mr. Chairman talked to Mr. Bowen, about restricting growth. If it's a two-bedroom, it becomes a three. Because if you have that language, you get 0% financing from the abatement trust. And we've got a lot of loans that have 2%, 3%, or whatever the percents are, but they give 0% interest. And then if we get a forgiveness because of our status in the communities, it's a significant savings. So it makes sense that the sewer department, promulgate a regulation that says any sewered area, if it is a three-bedroom, it can be no more than a four-bedroom, et cetera, because we don't have these 2, 3 bedrooms become 7-bedroom homes and impact capacity issues to the entire system. That's a 0% financing, which is huge. 0% financing is a big number. And we talk about having limited funds all the time. You would think we'd do everything we can as a community to borrow at a 0 rate opposed to a 2 or 3% rate. Over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that's a heck of a savings that can go someplace else.
Now, since I sent out the draft, Guy had given me some explanations for the two, and so Mac, they're not on your copy, but they're on the one I sent out this afternoon. Do you find those to be accurate, Jimmy and Peter? Are you
I thought they-
comfortable with those explanations, or do you want me to read them? I know Mac can't.
I was
see them.
fine with, here, Mac, you wanna take a look at mine for the explanations?
What's that?
The explanations on these things. They're down at the
Oh, he's
bottom
got
of
a
each
copy.
one.
No, his copy does not have the explanations on it.
Oh,
I read this,
Oh, you did?
Okay,
Okay.
you saw that?
this earlier on.
Yeah, I sent it out today.
the,
Anywhere in these articles, do you mention or you document the estimated magnitude of the overall project cost? Or do you leave borrowing open-ended?
Borrowing, what we did is we had estimates to get a cost of what it's gonna cost us, and the $3 million for A would cover the total project, and the $3 million for B covers the total project.
So 3 million?
Yes, for
is-
each.
Is the magnitude of the project? 'Cause
Yes.
I was under the impression it was 3 million plus,
Well,
whatever.
it's 3 million, but I'm gonna be clear, and this is what troubles me generally speaking in all budget areas, is because daily, things are changing. So 3 million is what we got today. I got an email this week that put the project of Narrows at max of 3 million. Actually, they said 2.8, and with the contingency to 3 million. That could change daily, and no one,
You want to increase the amount we're asking for?
I don't know, because I don't know what the number is. Should we? Maybe, I don't know what the number is.
If we don't use it, then we don't borrow it.
No, we have left borrowing open-ended. 3 million's a whack.
Mac, turn your mic on.
It's on.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that's- that's-
White cannot hear him.
You might hit the button.
I think it's on.
I thought it was on. Yeah, now it's, yeah, it was on, that's what I thought, it was on.
Probably
Probably pull a mic
because
closer.
it is a concern, but, I don't have answers. The project we're doing now, the money that we budgeted, some of the issues are rising costs because availability goes crazy, and then shipping goes crazy. So
Understand,
you
what do
think
we do
should
with
put a
these?
Maybe 6%, with a 6% inflation? I don't know. So we do a 6% inflator? and add the 6% to 3 million and say whatever that number is? I don't know.
All right, the way it's worded.
I was gonna say, we had that one project come in, the EQ basins you put in, that finished. That came in under budget.
Yes.
We're looking at a max dollar, theoretically, of 3 million at this point. If for some reason, based on what you're saying right now, if it were to go over that, what direction do we go to get the additional funds at
Back
that
to town
point?
meeting.
We'd have to go back to town meeting in the fall town meeting.
Okay, well, wouldn't, at this particular juncture, wouldn't that make most sense? We've got a number that we're relatively comfortable with. I won't say 100%, but relatively, because that's the numbers you're getting in as a max dollar figure. Now, I have to assume, unless I'm wrong, that that max dollar figure, based on the projections coming in from outside, has got a fudge factor in there to account for some stuff, even though they're not throwing it up front on the table.
Right.
So, I guess from where I'm sitting, I'm looking at it and saying that I'd stick with the 3 million, and if for some reason we get really hosed because of everything that's going on, and it goes up, we just go back to town meeting. We'll have to do that.
Engineering has been done, correct?
Yes, we're, engineering's
So
paid
this
for.
is just construction cost.
Right.
Construction and
Exactly.
components, yes.
I mean, I would,
Okay, leave it for, no. Mr. Foster was quite surprised that we were borrowing. No one gave him a heads up.
he was on vacation. He was probably home.
What does he mean by a heads up, so we'll make sure we do it next time? I don't know.
Well, if we think we're going to borrow, we should let Mr. Foster know as soon as we think we're going to borrow, that we're borrowing. Not at the end, at Thursday's meeting last week, I sent him an email. That's the first he knew we were even considering borrowing. We have talked about it for a while, but didn't share with him that we would be doing so.
I think in early conversations, we talked about taking money out of retained earnings.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know, and then we figured that we had to borrow, so yeah, so you're right, so if
A
there's
little heads up,
would
I
be
think if
what-
we are going to,
don't-
like this 17, what
If
you're
that's
talking
what he
about.
wants, that's fine. I didn't realize that he would like that
Yeah,
information.
he has
That
to
was-
make some commitments to this
I
order.
understand that, but what I'm saying, Sandy, is I don't believe that we knew that he would like that in advance.
No, I didn't
And
either.
if
but-
we had known that, we would have given it to him,
Well,
obviously.
he's now asking for a
That's
heads
fine.
up if we're
Okay.
planning to borrow.
Mr. Chairman, do you think I should do a list of estimated projects coming out and intend to borrow, and then as we get closer,
I think we
finalize
can
with
talk
them?
about it at this meeting, at the sewer commissioners, as to what our plans might be, and share with Mr. Foster and Mr. Sullivan what our plans are for future,
Well, if we look at the Upper Bay feasibility assessment, we could put in right now that we're looking to borrow 85 million at some point.
well, I think if we put it in writing and share, that's all.
Well,
That's all.
let me say this, we've
That's
already
just for this.
given Mr. Sullivan a $17 million
Over the course of the
proposal to
next
borrow.
I mean, I'm talking about Mr. Foster.
No, so I think there's
And
that
Mr.
disconnect.
yeah, so-
We'll send it off to Mr.
Okay.
Foster, because we did say, Mr. Sullivan, that we're
Yep.
looking at a $17 million project, and we gave him to see if we could. So I'll get that to Mr. Foster,
as-
to give him a heads up.
Are you comfortable with these two articles with the changes made to say appropriate and town to vote to appropriate and/or transfer 3 million from available funds and/or authorize borrowing? $3 million.
In the explanation,
I think so.
Of which one?
in the Narrows,
Yeah.
do you think we should expand on that at all
How would you, yeah.
and reference what happened in Plymouth when they didn't take care of the pipe?
No,
No?
I don't think so. I mean, I.
Well, you're going to the townspeople, you know, I mean,
To your point, because if someone asks a question, that would be a great answer to give them.
well, you're going to the townspeople, you know, it's not like you're just going to the finance committee looking for this money. And they can relate to that.
Can they? How many of you think they knew Plymouth failed?
Plymouth failed. How many people you really think paid attention to Plymouth failing?
Exactly.
We're in the business, so we
You
pay
kid-
attention.
you don't think they saw that in the newspaper?
No.
Well, then reference that. Remember what happened in Plymouth and explain what happened.
I'm not so sure the article does that. It would be
What
a
did,
question
what
to
did it
us.
end up costing Plymouth?
We don't know. 80 million?
Not
We
yet.
don't know. There's a lot of
Yeah,
lawsuits still going on.
But it didn't cost just the ratepayers. It cost the entire town.
Yes, the town,
Well,
the
that's what I'm trying to say.
Enterprise went
That
bankrupt.
if we have a failure with this narrow pipeline, it isn't just the ratepayers that are gonna pick up the cost. The entire town is.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna get that point across at town meeting. That's why I'm asking, do you think we should expand?
It's something that could be said on the town meeting floor if it comes up. Someone's going to have to get up and speak to this article, not just the Finance Committee. So if Jimmy gets up and talks
Okay.
to that, I believe he can make the motion, he can make the mention of it
So
on
if
town
he
meeting
get up
floor.
and just gave this explanation, then I could get up and say, remember what happened in Plymouth?
Somebody- yeah.
And expand
Absolutely.
on it.
Absolutely, and that would make,
Okay, then,
that would
let's
make,
do it that way.
That
that
would
would
make
make
more
more
of a
sense.
point
Yeah.
on the floor to the people who are there to vote.
right.
Okay, all right, just,
It-
Remind
fine.
people
Yeah,
that, hey,
talk it.
I'll go along with that.
When did that pipe go in?
1972. Actually 71, but 72 went online.
This is not correct.
What did it say? 50 years?
20.
No, it said 50. Should have
no,
said 50
I
years.
cut and pasted from your explanation.
No, it's 50 years. That's why I said life expectancy. All right, so make sure it says
I
50.
cut and
apologize.
pasted
Go
from
in?
what you gave me.
I don't have my phone. Let me,
When did
because
it go
it's
in, Mike?
50 years. When 1972 went online.
It says, I will put 50.
That's incorrect.
It is 50. Then if I said 20, I apologize. That's
only
been online
50
since
years.
I think it's a typo.
I've
1972.
got that.
You just
But
gotta-
when did the pipe go in?
1971 for
With the
7, to go
plan.
online 72.
Well, it's
In 72?
So what's 30 years, Mac?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I will change the word from a life expectancy of 50. This was installed in,
1972, good catch. Because I thought I put that, because that's one thing. My point was, is that pipe is at life expectancy.
I know.
It's
So-
dead.
I'm not arguing it. I'm just
So we
looking
don't
at it.
want,
I'm
we don't
saying-
want to say it's reached its life expectancy,
will-
it's past its
Beyond.
life.
Beyond.
I will indicate that it was installed in
Beyond its life
1972
expectancy.
and beyond its
Because we
expected
talked
life.
about this at length, and I'm going, that's not right.
Sandy,
Oh, it was 50 years, so good
Sandy.
catch. I apologize for that.
if you put it was installed in 1972, would you put in parentheses 50 years? You got people that can't do math.
It's a math equation.
I will say 50 years ago.
They're all in Washington. I'm telling you right now.
In parentheses, I will say
But I
50
think,
years
you
ago.
want to say it's past its life expectancy.
I will indicate it's beyond its life expectancy.
Beautifully.
I'm gonna,
Good catch.
I'll get
You
tagged as a
silver tongue
terrorist.
devil, you.
And I graduated from Wareham, too. Wow.
You're
At
on.
night,
That's been
Just like
recorded.
Jimmy.
at night.
It's too funny.
Okay.
Okay,
will make those
that's the
changes.
On the Ruggles, do you want to say anything as far as the explanation? If Jimmy gives the statement, do you want somebody to say anything further on that?
How we're pumping out, pumping and pumping and pumping because it so failed.
Well, I can say that because the trucks go back my house every 3 hours.
Keep you awake.
I watch them.
We put a pump there on Kinko, and I got to tell you, the neighbors, like, it was in Facebook with a
Well,
picture of the pump.
But they go by Smith. When they go
considered
to
it.
Smith, they go by. And I see it like every 3 hours.
It's on social media. We're there so often. And they're in first name basis with my guys.
Well, do we want to say, after the explanation is given, we're talking about the Ruggles, get up and say, and this isn't the end of our problem. Smith's is just as bad, and that covers all of Hamilton Beach and the other side of Swift's Neck.
I think that's.
I can speak with
explanation.
certainty as the trucks go by my house every 3 hours when that's down.
That will probably make more sense, Peter, if I read the article, give the explanation, and then you stand up and do that
Okay.
on both of them. I think-
But if you notice, in the motion, we've said it will be a closed system with grinder pumps, and I've named the streets that will be impacted by this in the motion. So that becomes the rule, as opposed to the explanation, which is,
That's a good point.
we are voting on what's in the motion, and it lists the streets, and just make sure I got the right streets. I believe I do.
I think you do. I'll double check for sure, but
But Bayview is one word, not two.
One thing on the explanation, what do you think about, and the inflow from illegal sump pumps?
We'll address inflow,
The very bottom of the explanation for Wanquico.
so in inflow from illegal,
Well, they are illegal.
I will put the word.
Do we want to bring that out?
I will put the, from illegal sump pumps. I will insert the word illegal in the last sentence.
they are illegal, and I think everybody's aware of that.
And I will insert
Can
the
I ask a
word.
question, though,
Sure.
about this explanation? Do you even want to mention, unless you're going to tell me who's going to do it, who's going to create a system for sump pumps? Because we're not.
So that's a good, and something we'll talk about at.
That's a very good point, Mac.
I'm going to be very blunt. It's something we want to talk about at our workshop, to be frank with you. It's a workshop, which is a place where all your sleeves up and talk about these issues. I don't think it's a voting meeting, but anyways. There's a couple of alternatives, and I mentioned a couple, and I know that at one time Peter was objected to it, but there is something, DEP is floating the idea of adding sump pumps to the drainage systems. We talked about that, and there's a cost, obviously, and I don't know where we're gonna go with it.
To storm drainage?
Absolutely. We're abandoning a system,
Okay.
and we can tie that system into storm, and at the end of the storm, you have to put treatment, which is a tank to get sediment, or you can line the manholes that are existing to bleed out, let the water go out and grab. There's many options. And then we had talked about it today, that's an option, and if the town paid for it, we would have the homeowners pay for it, we could finance them over time, and many communities are doing it for 5 years, et cetera. So there are some viable options. At this time, about doing the project, we weren't going to mention it, but during the workshop, during the
Well,
public
you
meetings.
just mentioned it online.
And so that's going to be something that we discuss. But at this point in time, what we're trying to accomplish is just get the closed loop system in.
So you want to
That's,
leave?
that's all I care about.
Yes,
You want to leave sump pumps out completely then?
I would.
I'm throwing it out there for comment.
No, I see your point.
Don't want
You know,
anybody to get confused and
It
think,
could very well bring some negative votes.
Yes.
and if they're not,
What, from the 100 homes that are down there versus everybody who's paying for it? Sorry, Mac.
let somebody ask the question,
Well,
but what
the
you've
thing
said
is
here
that
is,
there's
when this
people down
system
there,
goes
Sandy,
in,
that have sump
your sump
pumps.
pump is done.
It's all done.
Put it outside on the lawn
Mm-hmm.
and recycle the water in and out, which is all they do anyhow.
Is it cleaner water when they recycle it?
As long as you have an answer, Jim.
We'll make one up. Not a problem.
6 million.
I mean,
You had mentioned that before.
we are looking at some really, and we'll talk to the DEP, we're looking for viable financing and alternatives for sump pumps, because it's not just this area.
Right.
It's in the entire, downtown Wareham is loaded with sump pumps.
Right, but-
I'm talking loaded.
My point is stormwater is DPW,
It is.
not
and
us.
It is, no, the DPW, the town decided to give treatment of stormwater, which is the MS4 program, to the DPW, so it becomes their problem. But the DEP is who we're looking to allow us to get into that system. And we would do our part to make sure the system would meet the criteria that's needed. After that, it's on them. We offered many years ago to take over this, because we knew it was coming.
Yep.
Because we're into treatment, and the town decided to keep it with the DPW, and there it lies, so that's a valid point. But we need to try to figure out, because the sump pump problem is town-wide. And so, long-term, we've got to address all the sump pumps in the town, because they're all illegal. Every one of them. At one time, all the sump pumps downtown used to go into the drainage, and they removed them.
Yeah.
So, we have a sump pump problem, major sump pump problem, and we keep forgetting about downtown, where the pipes are in trouble, there's leaking like crazy, infiltration's crazy, and sump pumps. So, yeah. So I don't know if we should attack it, but we'll attack it as we go along. But that's just my opinion.
No, I think you've got a great point.
You should have been downtown before the sewer system.
Sandy, how about the closed system addresses the infiltration of groundwater into the sewer system and allows us to get ahead of the rising seawater?
The closed system addresses the infiltration of groundwater
Into
And-
the sewer system.
and, well, I was going to go another way, into the sewer system.
And allows us to get ahead of the rising seawaters.
Allows us to, I don't, get ahead is not what, allows us to
Combat.
And leave the sump pumps
pre,
To mitigate, or, because right now the biggest thing is resilient, to
yeah, well,
become
into
more
the
resilient.
Closed system addresses the infiltration of
The closed system
groundwater
takes care of
into
both
the sewer system and allows us to address
You might get a little
rising sea
squeaky though,
levels.
when they know that there's some pumps
Because it's
You like
rising.
that one?
aren't gonna,
Try it again.
Closed system addresses the the thinking of groundwater into the sewer system and allows us to address rising sea levels. Address rising sea levels, period,
Better address.
to better address. Okay,
I like that.
so we don't mention the,
No, we won't mention the illegal sump pumps.
yeah. Well,
because
I mean,
someone,
if you get some big pushback, you just say, we're not maintaining any
Well-
more pipes 17 feet down, we're done.
I know for
In
a
a
fact,
coastal zone, it's insane.
I know for a fact somebody
Exactly.
that has a sump
Call your
pump
engineer.
and has no idea where it goes. They truly don't.
They probably don't. Some.
Well, they claim they truly don't.
Well, you gotta look at some of these houses
Okay.
down there, they've changed hands a number of times over the years, there's gonna be sump pumps in them. They're probably, when they bought the house, the sump pump was installed, and they didn't know it was there. And, and literally, and it could very well happen, they've got it in a hole in the floor, it's wired into someplace, it's on a float valve, and it's covered over,
That's what I would say.
I gotta say, I would have to ask the
I'll be
question, what
happy-
the heck is
That's
that?
what I would say.
I said, what the heck is that?
That's what I would
I will
say.
make
wanna
the
know.
changes.
Oh, that?
What?
Yeah, don't worry about that. Just sign here.
some of us would ask the question, Mac, but there's others that wouldn't, that's the trouble. And I'm not trying to make excuses for people, but I just know that particular scenario does exist, because I know one guy that has that problem, not here in town, but in another town.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, the other reality is, if you come from the city, New Bedford or Boston, where CSOs are allowed, where you combine sewer, and so you have pumps in the basement to
Yep.
address it, and it's legal.
Yep.
So you would probably assume that it's
Never-
okay to do,
never
not
think anything
realizing we
more of
don't
it.
have a combined
I will
system.
make the changes and get this back out to you before the weekend, but can we vote on anticipated
That's
changes?
what we're gonna do right now.
Okay. I make a motion that we support WPCF Articles 1 for the Narrows and Article 2 for the closed systems at Swiss Beach to be
Second.
submitted into the Springtown meeting.
And a second on that,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Do you want to do roll call so you're covered?
yeah,
Well, no, we don't need it. We're here personally. The roll call is only needed for Zoom.
Oh, is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
only for Zoom.
Okay, 4-0.
Have you told anybody we've increased the sewer rates yet? You were going to let Mr. Sullivan know.
I did. I personally told Mr. Sullivan and every department head.
And does our liaison know?
Who?
So Mr. Sullivan has been notified?
Yes.
One more thing. Conservation just got a request for an expansion of a building at 3 Kendrick for adding 6,000 square feet. I believe that's the crouton factory. Heads up, surprise, surprise.
No, it's not. It's
What
what's
is-
happening is it's going to be not a crouton. I believe it's a building that's going, what is it? It's going to be crumpets. It's a building
Oh,
that's
okay,
there.
they're still going to be manufacturing food.
Yes, crumpets.
Okay.
So and I've talked to the engineer.
Oh, crumpets. Oh,
Crumpets.
that's the guy, that's the guy from Buzzards Way.
Say trumpets or crumpets?
Crumpets. Crumpets.
I just didn't want you to be surprised that a 6,000 square foot addition to a building on Kendrick, 3
Kendrick.
Kendrick, was
So-
going to be hitting us.
So the board's aware, I've asked for an impact, because remember, that pump station is already hammered. We shouldn't even
Oh, yeah.
want what we got. So there's got to be some major consideration, and this speaks to your moratorium, because we have to say, listen, all projects will be investigated individually and based upon the merit, flow, impact, et cetera, before any decision is made as to whether we'll let you do it or not. Because it's going to be huge.
We haven't talked about a moratorium.
We haven't. We're going to talk about it.
No, we haven't talked, we mentioned it as a high level, we haven't gone into
It's going
details.
into, yes, it's
Is that-
going.
Is
yes.
that on the next agenda?
Yes, it's in the, what do you call it, the workshop. It's one of the items
When's
on
the
workshop.
workshop?
I think it's the 9th, I'm not so sure.
I haven't
It's the
seen
9th of
anything.
It's because we just got the date set today, or yesterday.
And we weren't going to tell you
Well,
till
we
the
need
day
to have a
before.
policy, correct, Jimmy?
You weren't going to tell me.
10 minutes before.
Don't push it.
No, I got a call this morning. Sandy, the meeting's at 11. Fine, that's about 9:30.
Nice.
Well, that's,
Got another call.
You didn't have-
Sandy, it's 10 o'clock.
It's not 11, it's 10.
Sandy, that didn't require a 48-hour notice.
No, it didn't. So, it's Sandy, it's 10 minutes of 10 and the meeting's at 10.
I made a mistake, it wasn't 11.
I'm sure glad I was out of the shower.
Oh, by the way, Sandy, it's at 10. Oh, that's 10 minutes, yes. Yeah, so that's why I said I give her a 10-minute notice.
So you think it's
We're
going to be a
supposed to
March
do
9th?
something with the
It's gonna be the-
policy on that,
It will be
aren't
the
we?
9th, 10 o'clock. It's a Wednesday, 10 o'clock at the plant.
We're supposed to develop a policy, correct?
I'll send you,
Did you do something on that?
This was for the,
I've got about 5 things on the agenda.
There's an agenda for that workshop.
Okay.
I'll get that out to you.
When's it going to be, Jimmy?
The 9th
at 10?
at 10 a.m.
Oh, that's okay.
At the plant?
Yep,
And this is a workshop?
yep,
Well,
Oh.
you'll send it out, right?
yep.
Okay.
You will remind me, please.
I definitely will remind you. I definitely will remind you, sir.
Damien's Pantry is moving up here. I vetted that today, and I guess that's just going to be a building, used a couple, 3 days a week. It's going to move to, I think, the intersection of Swiss Beach and Route 6. I want to tie it into sewer.
Swiss Beach and Route 6.
Yeah.
One more major traffic when we don't have our traffic lights yet.
So I think it's, because, there's going to be Damien's Pantry they're going to put there, and so it has very...
Where?
So that open land, so as soon as...
Oh, there's no building there.
Nothing there. They're
Oh,
going to put a building.
the Deacon's property at that corner.
They're going to put a building for Damien's Pantry, and it's only going to be for the pantry, and that's going to be minimal sewer.
I'm thinking about the traffic.
Yeah, it's going to
The
be...
traffic at that intersection. Okay, sorry. Are we done? Do you want the magic words?
We're waiting for
Guy,
you have
got
any
anything?
report? You have
No, I'm
anything?
good. I'm good.
Okay, so that takes care of that one.
Damn.
Unfinished business, no, new business, nothing new. We've already done
Let it rest.
everything there.
At the next meeting, the 9th, and when we talk, there's a lot to talk about, and I think that's gonna be the proper
Yep.
place to talk about all this stuff.
Yes,
There's a lot of issues.
I make a motion, we adjourn the sewer commissioners meeting at 7:15.
Before I second that, I'd like to make 3 points for next meeting, Mr. Chairman. We raised the rates for the residents and the ratepayers. I'd like to consider raising the rates on the haulers. That's point one.
I believe that's in the workshop.
Point two, with Guy's shortage of help, I'm sure Greasilla isn't up to 100%. Should we be thinking about a moratorium on taking in any more grease? And point number three, Sandy's meticulous with the way she keeps the minutes, but I know she can't write as fast as we can talk. What about getting a tape recorder so that she can review what we say and the minutes are perfect?
What happens is that the minutes are available in WCTV, so
Yeah, but if we had our own tape, you could do it what you would and take it with you.
well, I don't do the minutes.
That's right. He doesn't do the minutes.
They're done by office
I-
staff, all of them.
Okay.
And all I do is,
Well, those are the 3 points. We can
Okay.
discuss it.
okay.
Bob provides a disc, if
Thank you.
anybody wants
Actually,
that
I'll-
disc.
I'll
At
put
the end of
this-
the
I don't
meeting-
need the
Put this
disc, I can
the
go on
agenda for
WCTV and,
discussion. Yeah, the
But there is a
workshop,
disc
yeah.
available.
wanted.
Sounds good.
not for agenda.
And
I-
we're, just to your point, we're in the middle of a grant application to, working with a company out of Boston to run Greasilla and supply help to get it up and running. We're in the middle of that grant process, so that'll be out shortly.
That's good.
And we've got good heads up on this, and so, because we're gonna put next to the Greasilla, a plant that's gonna make biodiesel. And so they're gonna run the plant, they're gonna pay for the staffing and all that, so it's gonna help us get to where we need to get.
And Mac,
That being said, I second the motion on the table.
all in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
good night.
Good night, everyone.
Right.